there's doom and gloom. We have to.
Crazy that people can't figure this out. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Say you're just like a brainwashed person, right? You're indoctrinated. Why would you believe a government that's just spreading fear? Why would you not believe the government if they're saying, hey, take vitamin C? Hey, why don't you get more minerals? Why don't you filter your water? Hey, why don't you get some air purifiers or filters for your house to clean the air? I'm saying that because on the West Coast, the air quality here is shit with all these fires right now. But, like they should be going above and beyond trying to teach people how to become more healthier. Diet would be the biggest thing. Why are fast food restaurants open? Why are the alcohol stores open? And it just, at what point do people wake up and realize that the government is literally keeping us sick? Why the thoughts that they're feeding us, by the food that they're giving us, and the chemicals in the food is a whole nother conversation. Why is it, because I used to do a lot of international traveling, and why is it when I go to other countries, all the same chemicals found here are banned in Canada? Canada is just a bordering state, and they have most of the chemicals banned there. You go to Sweden, you go to Norway, you go to Greenland, you go to all these different countries, and they have the chemicals banned that are found in our food and water. It's mind-boggling that people can't figure this out.
Right. And I've been in practice for 10 years, and I am convinced that the big pharma wants us sick 100%. They don't want to cure.
It's not hard to see that. Like,
right.
Chemotherapy. Right. I'm big into cannabis. I do a lot of CBD and THC oil privately. And, I just never understood, like, why would you be zapping yourself with radiation to heal yourself? And
right.
I have enough testimonies and enough heartbreaks at the same time of people coming to me 6 months, 3 months into chemo, and they're literally dying, and they're figuring out that this isn't working. And there's only so much you can do at that point when somebody has 6 months of freaking chemo and stuff. But you get them on a really good oil, a good CBD oil, or you get them on some ozone oxygen treatments and stuff. Start changing their plant, getting them to a plant-based diet, eating fruits like soursop and so on. And some of these people got to extend their life, for a couple more months and stuff, which, they're grateful, their families are grateful for. But it sucks that these people continue to go down the same path. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I saw like 90% of people who go through chemo die, I think it is. It's like a crazy large percentage of people.
Stage 4, yep.
And I just don't understand, why the fuck do people do this stuff to themselves? Is it just because the medical field tells you? I don't comprehend it.
Well, we are facing a monopoly. They monopolize sickness and disease. Any type of cancer alternative treatment, it's really illegal. You can't even say that I treat cancer alternatively in this country because they have a monopoly on it. They don't want to cure cancer, they want to manage it. But if you start looking, investigating what cancer is, it's just like the wilted plant analogy, the illustration that I talked about. When cancer, let's say you have a wilted plant, in reference to cancer, they just want to cut it out. They want to drug you, radiate you, and that's their modes of treatment. And it's a terrible treatment. Why does cancer in the body, not all cancer, but most cancers, have a tumor? And it has a blood supply. Why does it have a blood supply? That tumor is keeping you alive. They just want to cut it out. And it's like, there's an innate intelligence inside that body that's telling your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, the cells that communicate the way they do. That innate intelligence is very smart. We think that we're smarter than that innate intelligence inside the body.
Yeah.
But it's the same power that made the body, the same power that heals a cut, the same power that heals a broken bone. And we think that we can interfere with that smarter than that. No, we need to give that body what it needs, and it can be well.
Yeah.
Otto Warburg is the one that discovered cancer, and he wrote a book on how to cure it. And cancer is there's a lot to that, but giving the body what it needs, simple as that. And we need to simplify. We overcomplicate the healing mechanisms, and simplify just means to remove the unnecessary. And that's what we need to do. We need to remove the unnecessary, simplify, and give the body what it needs, and it can be well. And it's as simple as that. Whether you use CBD, THC, I know there's a lot of literature out there. It's a very powerful medicinal plant. There's a cannabinoid system in the body. I've had patients that use high amounts of CBD and they're asymptomatic, and they've had conditions like MS. They've had epileptic seizures constantly. And, you know, there's more and more and more information out there, but Big Pharma doesn't like competition. They want a monopoly on this, and they're fearful.
The ozone treatments, the oxygen treatments, they get rid of 99% of everything found in the body. You could have mold, and it could get rid of mold back up in your body. It could get rid of cancer. I know legally you can't say stuff like this and stuff, but like, it's just crazy that we know what's out there, and there's all different medicines out there that do this stuff. Like, even when you, like, I studied shamanism for a while, and I know actually a few shamans in Peru, Costa Rica, and so on and stuff, but ayahuasca is a tool for them to use that to get rid of cancers and tumors and stuff. I know here in America, everybody thinks ayahuasca, spiritual journey, and psychedelic experience, but that's not what it's for. That's their way of curing diseases and viruses and so on in the jungles and stuff. And like you were saying, it's extremely simple. It doesn't take like some person that studied 8 years in college to figure this shit out. If you're eating chemicals and if you're eating a large portion of animals and stuff, there's probably a really good chance that you're going to be clogging up your arteries. You're going to be getting extremely sick with all the chemicals and so on. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. And, you know, I'm plant-based. I used to be a hunter. I've done the whole spectrum of things. So I used to actually go hunting, and then I just learned about plant-based diets, and I wanted to try it. I saw how much better I felt, so I stick to it. But it's like, even for people that want to eat animals, never in a period of time has anybody ate an animal 3 times a day, 4 times a day, and then have the largest portion possible of that animal each and every time. That's not what our ancestors did. That's not how other countries operate. Only here in America do people try to eat a freaking 5-pound steak. Like, it's just unnecessary. I learned about mountain men, which I'm sure you're probably aware of mountain men and stuff, or just people who grew up in the mountains, lived in the mountains, hunted, survived, gathered, and so on and stuff. They didn't eat animals every single day. They were still using the plant life around them to survive. And even when they did kill that animal, they used every single part of it. They tried to make it last as long as possible. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to go through this deer in 24 hours and stuff. It's just the whole way our system is set up is totally like, it's cancerous to the body. I don't think there's any, but even like, you have kids, right? Do they go to public schools or?
No, we homeschool.
Yeah, see, you're on the right level of everything. That's awesome. But like, when you take kids to public schooling, right? What do they feed them? A slice of pizza and some chocolate milk, and it's both heavily like corn, like syrup and all the different chemicals in this microwave fucking food and stuff. It's just the indoctrination from the very beginning is the problem. Which I wanted to get into this because a lot of people will be like, well, I'm a doctor, or like, I'll have doctors come on my page and saying I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, okay, do you know who John Rockefeller is or David Rockefeller is? Most of the time they don't know who these people are. These are the individuals who founded the public educational system in the United States, including college. So why would the people who have heavily invested in pharmaceutical companies, heavily invested in censoring information, why would these same people be teaching somebody going to school for 8 years? You're spending $500,000 to get that degree and stuff. Why would they teach you really how to cure and heal people and stuff if they control every other aspect of society?
Right. The thing is, man, school, I grew up in a public school, and I bucked the system. I skipped about 25 to 30 days a year. I constantly had to make up school in the summer. Yeah. My mom would have to write me notes and get me out of school because I hated it. I mean, I grew up in the country. I was like just a wild free spirit, just constantly riding horses all day long. I did not want to go to school. And, you know, looking back, I realized that I was very thankful I bucked the system. You know, public schools, and I had some great teachers, don't get me wrong. I grew up in a very, very small town. But we chose to homeschool because the schools, they indoctrinate the minds. They don't teach the kids how to think. They teach the kids what to think. Yeah. And there's so much propaganda being fed in the schools. And I love homeschooling because we can teach the kids, we can tailor to their learning style, whether visual, auditory, hands-on, whatever it may be. We can tailor
Yeah.
to their learning style and really just focus on their interest and exploit it. I got a good friend of mine. He's like a computer nerd. I am not. And he's like a complete coder. His boy's 10 years old, and he's coding better than half of his employees in the work field. And just imagine that at 10 years old. Imagine when he's like 18, 19, if he just keeps pursuing this. And it's the homeschooling is, I can't endorse it enough, but don't get me wrong, but the state wants to come after homeschoolers. They're trying to restrict it right now. Even in Nebraska, they're slowly trying to come after homeschoolers, and there's draconian legislation coming our way with all that crap. But there's a book out there written by Ron Paul. It's called The School Revolution. Highly recommend. There's also a book, I forget the title of it, but it talks about exactly what you were talking about, how the public schools were set up for factory learning and everything else. We need to get away from that. Schools haven't progressed. They haven't evolved. They haven't changed much. It's still like sit in a line and sit in the classroom. And now with Corona, I can't even, it's like sending my kids off that is an absolute nightmare. Now, there's some of you that probably listening what I'm saying, and you don't have a choice to that. But, I encourage you to really look into homeschooling. We don't need to do the 8 hours a day. So many parents are like, well, how do you homeschool? I don't have 8 hours a day. I'm like, whoa, you don't need 8 hours a day to homeschool your kids. Like, I have 4 spider monkeys. Okay. I have 4 kiddos at home, and they're wild as can be. And we homeschool like an hour a day, and then they have like an hour assignments. And then some days it's like, it's a bad day, just sit on the couch and read. I don't even care. And there's some moms that's like, you know what? We put on, a TV with the scripts on the bottom. You're reading that, and it's like, we don't do that all the time. They get maybe an hour of TV a week, and that's very selective of what we let them to watch. But or they're reading, and that's okay. You're going to have good days and bad days in homeschooling. That's the beauty of it. But your kids, I feel like they learn so much, and the mind is so important, what we put into their minds, because what we think about, our thoughts can change our chemistry in a second. We can change, if you change your perception, you can really change the chemistry of the body. If you change your thoughts, you can change the world. And our thoughts are so powerful. They're transmitted through the nervous system. Our nervous system controls every cell, every tissue, every organ in the body. We need to understand that our thoughts do come from the nervous system. They're transmitted through the nervous system. We can change the physiology, the chemistry in a second. If we change our thinking, our thoughts become words, our words become actions, our actions become character, and our characters are destiny. We need to understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you just said the most powerful thing, which is what my entire page is about, is thoughts create your reality. And when you start understanding your thinking process and stop acting or reacting just based on your emotions or how you feel in that moment and stuff, that's when you start to really get control of your body, your mind, and everything. And when you realize that you're speaking things into existence, like, there's an extreme power for that. And for all the people who might be having a hard time understanding us or thinking we're speaking gibberish here, have you ever lost a loved one or lost a dog or lost something close to you? That thought alone tears you apart. You literally can feel pain just with the thought of a loved one passing away, right? That's how powerful your thoughts are. But flip that. That doesn't mean it's just negative. If you put your thoughts in a powerful mindset and you start speaking positivity into the world and start speaking into, like, your goals and plans and what you want to do and how you want to live, it's the same energy. It gets spoken out into the universe, and then from there you just you let your actions follow.
Right. 100%, my friend. I mean, I think it was oh my gosh, he wrote Think and Grow Rich. I forget his name. But he talked about, your thoughts, whatever the mind conceives and believes, you'll achieve. Yeah. And, Zig Ziglar said, if you understood the power of your thoughts, you'll never have a negative thought again. And so you're 100% right. We need to focus on the good. We need to focus on the positive. We need to be a light into the darkness. And, and when someone says you're always negative, no, you're shining light on the matter, shining light and exposing this for what it is, so we can move on and past it.
The only way you could create change is acknowledging that there's a problem. Like, right. Especially you being a doctor and stuff, like, you can't change somebody if you don't know what the heck the issue is. Right. It's just that simple. Like, and there's this thing called a light warrior and a light worker. And you or somebody and myself or somebody that are light warriors, we're able to stand on the front lines and speak our truth. And the light workers are the people who stand behind us and support us and give us that energy work and do those meditations and do that energy work that's behind us. And that's something that people need to come to terms, because a lot of conquer and divide tactics are always used in every kind of like situation. And people are like, well, you're negative, right? Because you're out there speaking on the front lines. It's like, no, 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 no. I'm willing to put myself on the front lines to protect you. You might not have that capability of standing on the front lines and speaking your truth in front of a crowd of people and stuff. But that's where my power lies, and I want to use my power. I want to protect people like you, and I can only hope that people like you who still understand the power of energy, the power of words, and all that are supporting me and sending me energy while I'm standing up there. Because we are the front lines, and I've been the front lines for a decade now. I was 20 years old talking about this shit, publicly talking about this shit. And you get crucified when you're talking about this stuff. But I'm grateful that, I don't know if it's the way my family raised me or where I'm from, but I got really thick skin. So usually what people say to me, I really don't give a fuck. So I'm usually pretty good being on the front lines. So I've been able to talk about every conspiracy under the sun or past the sun.
Right. And I tell you, my friend, it's, like I said, and speaking truth in these times is a revolutionary act. When
Really
I spoke at the city council, if I spoke that last year or spoke it 2 years ago or said that, 2 years ago, it wouldn't have gone viral. Why did it go viral now? Because telling the truth is a revolutionary act in these times. And we need to encourage others. We need to encourage our brothers and sisters that they can do the same thing. We need to be able to encourage them that they can speak truth. As uncomfortable as it may make you feel, we need to understand that we need to speak truth. You, my friend, are a lighthouse. You stand your ground in the midst of the storm, and you're unwavering, and you are a light in the darkness that is harboring others in from danger. And we need to keep, yes, and so we need to keep shining our light brightly.
So I wanted to talk about, you mentioned the documentary that you're working on and stuff. Do you want to talk about that?
I have a great idea for a documentary, and I'm still working on it. I'm trying to get other doctors involved. As I've had this idea for many years, and I feel like everything's aligning right now. That's one of my great, big, hairy, audacious goals, is to have a documentary. I have so many different ideas for documentaries. And it's basically, I'd love to get a unified voice. I always say, as a laser is a concentrated beam of light that can cut through the strongest of steel, we need to have a unified voice, a concentrated voice that can cut through this medical tyranny, this medical dictatorship, and speak truth and encourage others and let them know that they can be well, that your body's ability to be well, to heal itself, to overcome conditions like corona is far greater than anyone is ever permitted to believe. We don't need to live in this fear, because right now we have I call a herniation in the sickness and disease model that's pouring into the wellness and prevention model. They're trying to operate in a wellness prevention model. We need to understand there's two paradigms to operate in. The allopathic model, the allopathic model, the crisis care model is emergency care, it's crisis care, and they are life-saving at times. If I got into a car accident, I'm gonna go to the emergency care. I'm going to get their care because they can be life-saving. But when they get me out of that crisis care and they send me out, that's where the wellness and prevention model takes the baton and says, let's get you well. Let's focus on healthy lifestyle, moving well, eating well, and thinking well. That's the wellness and prevention model. And that's where we need to operate in, because that's the key to true health. Benjamin Franklin said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
We need to value our health now before we get sick. And that's the whole the model we need to shift in. And but the medical model doesn't even recognize the wellness prevention model.
No.
They don't even want to give it merit. They say, oh, that's all hogwash. There's such censorship going on into the natural world, and that's the problem, because that is really where people get well.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else that we should speak on. Is there any other subjects that you kind of want to speak on or talk about?
The biggest thing is, I just want to encourage others, like you said, man. I think that's the biggest thing we can focus on, is to encourage others. We're not to live in fear. I've said this before. I've posted on my page, but fear is the fire that fuels the furnace of disease, and it shifts the body into a stressful state. Stress is the biggest killer in the body. We need to understand that it's an evil thing being pushed on the body and the mind and the people.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've never done this Instagram thing. I've seen a lot of comments going by, and I don't know if someone does have a question. If they want to ask a question, maybe we can respect the audience and see if they have a question. So
For sure, yeah. Go ahead,
yeah.
guys. Ask questions. There's even a little question tab that I could click on and bring it up, but I only see like 2 questions in there. But yeah, somebody asked me, am I going to save this live? I will be saving this live. It will be up on our feed shortly after this live video wraps up. Let's see. Who want to talk about ladies starting fire? That's a whole nother conspiracy. Somebody's talking about, by any chance, do you know what DEW is? Direct energy weapons?
To me, and so I think there's just so much that I don't know personally, and that the majority of the people don't know. But I don't doubt that those weapons exist.
Yeah.
And
it's a combination with those fires that we're seeing, especially like the ones that we saw in Australia just last year, and even in parts of California. The electrical company, I think it was PSNG or something like that, they actually had a lawsuit filed against them, and they lost because their smart meters, the meters on the side of people's homes, were actually triggering fires because they could just ramp those things up, and then that can internal combust and start a fire. And that's why you were probably seeing, or people were seeing, houses on fire, but their lawns were not on fire. Their trees in their backyard were not on fire, but just the house was on fire. And that plays one role. The biggest role is the heavy metals that are being sprayed in our airways, the chemtrails, right? That is what's leading all these fires to spread the way they're spreading, because now we're talking about 20 plus years. Well, I would just say 20 years of them spreading heavy metals and chemicals through the airways, through chemtrails. Geoengineering is their proper way of terming this. And now all you do is have to start a little fire or use a direct energy weapon, and it's going to ignite it, and it's going to spread. And I think ultimately the reason why they're doing this is more of looking in the future, 5 to 10, maybe 15 years from now, is they're trying to create smart cities, which is what the 5G rollout is. By having the 5G towers everywhere, they're going to be able to create a grid, an EMF grid, where they're going to be able to do something called Skynet. Have you heard of Skynet, what they have in China?
I have not.
The Skynet is their social justification of, I'm saying that wrong, but it's their social construct of, if you jaywalk, they have facial recognition on every street in areas of China. So your credit score is going to be impacted. You didn't pay your taxes, your credit score is going to be impacted. You were on Facebook talking out against the government, your credit score is going to be impacted. The biggest thing is it's connected to your family and your friends and so on. So it's also going to affect the people closest to you. The only way they're capable of doing that is by having 5G. 5G is the only thing capable of having that download speed to download your face, your retina, your fingerprints, all the different things that are taking place at one moment in time. And that's essentially what a smart city is. So I think ultimately what they're trying to do is they're trying to create smart cities in the inner city areas, and they're burning the lands outside of these places so people can't flee to those areas. The shit really is going to hit the fan, which I hope it doesn't. That's why I dedicate my life to sharing information and truth. But if shit was to hit the fans, they're burning all the surrounding areas, so people have to stay in these inner cities, these smart cities. I know it's a big conspiracy, and some people aren't on that wavelength of thinking the way I do and looking at the future, because a lot of people look at this as checkers, and they're just looking at what pieces are getting moved right now, where this is the 5D chess game, and that's what this piece of artwork represents above me. This is the most powerful people. I'll bring it a little closer so you can see it. But these are the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, George Soros. But the thing you'll notice is they're on a checkered floor, right? The slaves are. The reason why it's on a checkered floor is that's a subliminal message to Freemasonry. Black and white is some of their coding that they use. And it's just saying that we're playing checkers right now. Really, they're playing a game of chess right now. But I do see that these fires are going to lead to people staying within the inner cities. I live in Arizona. I'm a huge most of my following knows I'm a huge nature boy. I go on 8, 10, 12-hour hikes, and most of the lands that I would go hiking are all torched right now, and they've been torched for the last 2 years, and now this year we have even more fires. So it's a huge, whole nother topic, but I do think that they're burning these lands to keep people in the cities. Because if you think about it, right, where can you heal, right? You get out into nature, you spend a couple nights under the sun, under the stars, under the moon. It's where you connect with yourself. That's where you go through your thoughts. It's where you learn to get rid of all of your anxieties and fear and stress. It's where you heal, is in nature. And they're literally taking that away from people.
Dude, you got me thinking. I didn't. I didn't. The fires were weird timing. I mean, we have what, 3 million acres, 3.5 million acres on fire right now,
Yeah.
and I don't doubt what you're saying, and I think that it's weird. Oddly, it's we do have our freedoms at stake. We only have the rights that we're willing to defend. And just like Benjamin Rush stated, that we need to put medical freedoms in the Constitution, because the time will come when medicine will form into an undercover dictatorship. We are living in those times. Those times are now. We are in an absolute undercover into a dictatorship right now. If you look at the beginning of the year, what the First Amendment has 5 freedoms: the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the freedom to petition the government, the freedom to form an assembly, right?
Is it freedom of press? I think.
Freedom of press. Thank you. I was missing that one. Yeah. And so all those freedoms are being attacked. People wake up. We have you can't. I mean, we couldn't even meet at church. They said you couldn't even worship at church. You couldn't even, and you can't speak your mind, like you're saying. There's going to be censorship. I watched a video of a lady in Australia who got arrested for posting a protest about Corona baloney in Australia. That she was arrested for posting. She was a pregnant lady. Oh my gosh! Yeah. All I have to say is, if they came to my house, try to arrest my wife, a pregnant wife, at 8 months, I would be exercising my Second Amendment on that one, because that it's absolutely criminal. I mean, the only way to justify incarceration is to if someone hurt another person. Yeah. How harmful was an 8-month pregnant lady? Who did she harm by posting a Facebook post? Yeah. I mean, this is criminal. We should have all stormed that prison and broke her out and say, this is enough.
That was in Australia. Yes, in Australia, they don't have the right to bear arms, and that's why the government's able to do what they're doing. I think she was in Victoria. She was in either Melbourne or Victoria. I forget what it was, but I actually knew people who were a part of that protest. She was the leader of the protest, by the way. She was the one that was actually organizing it, and that's why they targeted her. But what most people weren't aware of, the following days, 80 other people were visited by the police who were also a part of that protest. But yeah, that's the biggest thing with America, is we have that Second Amendment. We have the right to defend ourselves. And I was actually just looking at a video. They say like gun sales, or actually not gun sales, but background checks for gun sales are up 90%. So 90% of people, and those could be reoccurring customers or whatever it is, but either way, they said within the last months of August, we sold enough guns to fully arm Australia, I think 3 or 4 times over. So every citizen in Australia could probably have 3 to 4 guns with how many guns that were sold here in the United States in just August, let alone. But like you were saying,
good job, Patriots. Good job, people.
Our Constitution has been under attack for a very long time. Like I mentioned, freedom of press, right? For the last 30, maybe even 40 years. No, it goes back. It's called Operation Mockingbird. And I want to say that was actually in the 80s. So it's 30 years now, or maybe 40 years. What's it called? They've been consolidating the media companies. The big tech companies, even pharmaceutical companies, have been buying all the media press, whether that was your newspaper, your local stations, the radio stations, and so on, have been buying them and condensing them. And now in 2020, there's only 5 media companies in the entire United States of America. And they own everything. They own your movies, they own your radio, they own your newspaper. They control all the flow of information. And that's why like social media platforms were so powerful, because this was another way for us to reach the people. And some of my friends at Collective Evolution, that's an independent journalist network out of Toronto, but they cover worldwide news. They were showing statistics back in probably like 8 to 7 years ago, something like that, in the beginning of this Instagram journey or social media journey, Facebook. And their network was reaching more people per week than the mainstream media was reaching. And then right after that era is where they came in with these algorithms. So at one point on social media, it would be in chronological order, right? I'd post and then you would post, and it would literally show up in that order. Now I could post and you could post an hour later, and your post is before my post, type of deal, right? All that is an algorithm, which is censoring information and pretty much saying, we're going to show you what we think you want to see at what time it's available. So I might post this live video right after, but most of my followers might not even see it until tomorrow. It might not even become live till then for them. So this is another way of censorship and controlling the source of information, because even my account at one time at its like highest point, I was reaching 5 to 7 million people every single week. Just my one lone account was doing this. And then if you put it together, like you were mentioning, as a community of people, we were far outreaching the media companies. And now you're seeing it kind of be brought to light. Now you see the media companies addressing social media. They're talking about, all the conspiracies being spread. Now they have these fact checkers that are just, Google paid bots that are fact checking our information. But you could just see to the extent that they're going to censor information that you and I are sharing.
Right. So when is enough enough? That's the question.
That's the
I
question.
There's the someone commented on here, the spiritual nature lover 111. She's, he or she made a good comment on here. Like, protesting is not going to be enough. We just got to stop complying. That is 100% true.
Yeah.
This whole thing ends when we stop complying to it. When we realize that
our constitutional rights, I forget what one it might be, but you have the right to disobey any unconstitutional law or whatever
right.
it is. Anything that goes against our constitution, that is a right of to disobey.
100%.
Man.
Right, 100%.
And so
I believe it states in the Constitution. Well,
no, go. Say what you're saying.
I think it states in the Constitution that there's no emergency supersedes the inalienable rights of our Constitution. It says that in the Constitution. There's no emergency that supersedes our inalienable rights in the Constitution. And that's the thing. We need to understand that this whole thing, when the government takes away our rights, they don't give them away. They don't give them back easily. Yeah. And I believe Martin Luther King stated that the oppressor doesn't freely, voluntarily give freedom. It must be demanded by the oppressed.
Yeah.
And we are the oppressed right now. We need to understand that. And people are like, it's just a mask, man. Just wear your mask. No, people like you and I understand the big picture here. This isn't just a mask. This is a psychological, spiritual warfare being pushed on the people, and we cannot comply to this so easily. Because what's next? Yeah. It was 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and that's been what? 7 months, 8 months now. Yeah. And they just try to extend this whole mask mandate to November here in Omaha. It was supposed to be 2 weeks, and that's why I was so passionately against this whole garbage, this mask mandate, because eventually they're going to keep extending it. What's next? It's very easily going to turn into a vaccine mandate.
Yeah, I want to get into like solutions real quick so people know a direction to go, right? We could demand it, and I fully agree with that, but just like the Netflixing, right? Have you seen the Netflixing, the cuties, and how they've lost totally like $9 billion in market value because of that? Boycotting is the #1 way to get your voice heard. This entire system is created on money, on monetary value. If you stop supporting that system, they'll start listening to you because they only care about money. So say for doctors, if you stop going to the doctor's office and start going to the chiropractor, start going to the holistic healers and naturopathics and so on and stuff, they're going to notice that, hey, we're losing a lot of money here. Now, they might come at you guys and try to do things to fuck with you guys, but ultimately it's up to the people to say, no, we're no longer engaging in that system. I haven't watched TV in like 17, 18 plus years. Back in junior high, high school, I stopped watching TV. That's one way to boycott them. Stop engaging in that. And you also start to understand your subconscious and conscious thoughts and what that does to you as well. I don't want to go back all the way to talking about thoughts, but once you realize that you're not programming yourself subconsciously of all this fear, it changes your life immensely. And then the biggest thing is supporting your local community, your local farmers, your local shops and stores, doctors, whatever it may be. Start supporting those people. I've always noticed that the people closest to you have no issue supporting these celebrities and big corporations and so on, but they're almost never there to support your business, whether you're a musician, a healer, whatever it may be and stuff. That mindset has to change, because that I'm speaking to everybody here. If you have somebody in your community that you went to school with, college with, it's a family member, support those people. Those are the people that you need to support. Those people, they don't need support from somebody 3,000 miles away. They need support from the people closest to them. And it's just building community. Like, you were stressing that a lot. And I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but this little thing right here called Meeting of the Minds, I created this in 2014. It was actually after my sister passed away. She was 21 years old. I went through depression, all kinds of shit. And
Mm.
I looked at myself and I'm like, if I go down this path, I'm gonna destroy myself from within. So I wanted to take the energy that I was feeling and pretty much transcend it and motivate and inspire me and use the feelings that I was feeling to do good in the world. So I created Meeting of the Mind, which is a conscious networking event. It was to build community. I was bringing in healers, holistic doctors, activists, vegans, non-vegans, small businesses. We had vendors there. And I did this in over 30 cities, 8 countries, over 300 events. In a matter of like 4 or 5 years, I got to do it for. And then they started banning my bank accounts and all that stuff that I mentioned to you before. But one of my sole purposes since the very beginning has been building communities. I can't agree with you more when you were talking about that, as how powerful it is to build communities. And I just want to give an example on how powerful small communities are and the extent the government is willing to go to pretty much break that up. Malcolm X. A lot of people have painted this guy as a martyr, as somebody that was evil, that wanted to kill white people, and it was far from that. Malcolm X was actually doing local events. He was bringing people together and educating them on their constitutional rights, on the Bill of Rights. He was teaching them actually gardening. They started having small gardens or community gardens in their communities. And we're talking about the projects. We're talking about the ghettos. These people didn't have lots of land and stuff. We're talking about inner city areas Malcolm X was going to and educating people, teaching them to arm themselves, because if they arm themselves, the police can't push all that, police brutality over them. And what happened with Malcolm X, right? They created FBI, or the SWAT. SWAT was literally created during the era of Malcolm X and the mafia, the mobsters and stuff, because even the mobsters definitely use violence and stuff. I come from a family of that, but they were also about local communities. The Italians supported the Italians, Irish supported the Irish, Russians, Hungarians, and so on. They all had their own communities. And that's essentially what Malcolm X was doing from the African to black communities as well, just bringing those people together. But then they created SWAT. And then SWAT took over all these different businesses. They dismantled the mob, they had dismantled Malcolm X, and so on. And then the CIA stepped in and started taking over all those businesses, whether it was the drug trafficking and all that is creating local communities is the start of actually creating a revolution. When you could count on the people in your community to heal, to grow food, to whatever the job situations are that are out there, to educate the children and so on. Now we're getting away from the system.